Welcome to 10,000 Women, 10,000 Stages. Empowering women like you to amplify your voice, your message, your movement. We believe that if 10,000 new women stepped into high-level leadership platforms, we can transform the industries across the planet. 10,000 Women, 10,000 Stages. And now your host, Narissa Street.
Hi, Rachel. How you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm excellent. So really excited to be able to take some time to talk to you because the audio series that I'm producing is a series dedicated to women who are amplifying their voices. And it's called 10,000 Women, 10,000 Stages. It is based on my belief that if we arm 10,000 women to amplify their voices in whatever industry that they're in, that we will shift the paradigm of leadership on the planet. Very, very clear about that. So talking to experts like yourself who have been on some kind of stage or platform. And for me, my first love is theater. And there's so much to be learned from the art and science, of theater. And I really think that people need to know that theater is something that it looks good. It looks like it's fun. It is fun. That's why it's called a play. But there's a bunch of practices and processes and tools and just years of education to what is really a very, very powerful craft. And I call it a science. So I am so grateful to have you as a practitioner and an expert in it to chat with us. So tell the audience about yourself, please.
Sure. So I am currently a lecturer at University of Miami. In the fall, I will be an assistant professor of acting at Arizona State University. So I'm making a move right now. I'm an actor, director. I also do write as well for both theater, live theater, as well as for camera. I am also developing my my work as a dialect coach as well, and doing research on some dialects that I would like to see being more specific and less generalized than what they are currently. So that's one of the things I'm working on. And I am also working on decolonizing the curriculum as well. That's another area of research for me, is finding what are the techniques that are part of my ancestral history as well that I can bring to curriculum. So those are some of the things I'm focused on. And then as an artist, I'm developing a show right now, which originally was conceived as a one-woman show, but it's starting to expand now. So it may end up being, 3 or 4 women as opposed to just being a one-woman show. I'm still in development on that one. So those are some of the things I have going on right now.
It's only a few things. Decolonizing the curriculum and such. So I'm so excited as someone who went through a university-based theater program. I will say that is necessary. I went through the program as a non-traditional student. And as a non-traditional student, I had already been out in the workplace and decided to go back. I'd already gotten a business degree and said, this is the place, this is the thing I love. And so I went back in already having worked in the real world, and these great bright-eyed teenagers were just listening to everything that the teachers were saying. And I was pushing back like, we don't have to teach like that anymore, And so cannot wait.
Yeah, well, I think it's really important, in the work that I'm doing, it's not my goal to get rid of what we've had, but to add to. I think that there are, that we are all enriched when our curriculum is richer, and our curriculum
Right.
is richer when it's coming from multiple cultures. So, that's really what my goal is. I feel that there's a lot that I can gain from, studying Russian and British and Italian philosophers and Greek philosophers. And I feel that there's also a lot to be gained from studying those people that have had their thoughts and their opinions and their way of teaching, who share more in common with my ancestry. So I feel like that's only going to make everyone's experience better, to have more voices. I think as an actor, the more approaches you have, the more tools you have,
Right.
the better you're going to be at your craft. If you find something that works for you, that's fantastic. It worked for you on this character, on this production. Doesn't mean that same exact technique is going to work for you on every character and every production. So the more techniques you have available to you, the more pliable you become, the more flexible you become, the more options you have in terms of how to get to a specific character. So that's kind of my goal. Yeah.
And I love your approach, which is we are enriched when the curriculum is richer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel exactly the same way, that there are so many things that I learned, that were from the theater program and the process that I went through. But what I was, I guess what I was missing was that I had to, as a student, bring my ancestry in, as you say. And then what it does is that it puts it at a different level to the other students in the classroom, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, this is Narissa's little thing, right? And
Right.
And when the wisdom that I got from that was just as valid as the wisdom I was getting from other socialists. And what was really interesting is, as you say, the flexibility. I was able to be very flexible in certain places where my colleagues and my classmates were not.
Mm-hmm.
So very, very interesting that is the approach that you were able to take, and that was what was helpful for you. So a couple of questions we have here, but first, going back to what you were talking about your voice, right? And your stand in, just as you say, enriching the curriculum. I feel like that, and it's so amazing, and I'm really grateful that you're open to doing this interview. I feel like that's really what it's about. Like, I think people have this conversation where when I say something about amplifying women's voices, it also means silencing male voices. And I don't think that that's what it's about. It's about, as you say, adding to the discussion, so that there's a more global conversation, so that there's a more rich conversation, so that people understand that there's just different ways of approaching things, and leadership looks so many ways, right? And as somebody who is on stage, as someone who is making your career out of training people to be on stage, and to have eyes on them, I think the work that you're doing is just amazing. And I'm hoping that you will be fostered wherever it is that you're going, right?
Well, yeah, that's one thing I have to say I'm really grateful about, is that and what really drew me to Arizona State University is that they really have a commitment to being at the forefront of what's next, and not being stuck in the past of what has been. They want to create the theater school of tomorrow, the acting program of tomorrow, as opposed to just the one continuing to promote the one of yesterday. And I think that is a beautiful and wonderful thing that's going to be really great for their students, because they're going to be prepared not for what has existed, but for what they are going to create.
Right.
Which I think, I get goosebumps just thinking about being a part of a program that is, real committed to that. And not to say that other programs aren't, but this program has already made it clear to me that they plan to support me in my research, and they do that for their professors, I think, in general, of who are looking to innovate. Innovation is very important to this university, so I'm really excited to be joining them.
So how do you feel like, with being able to step into an environment that is that supportive, which is amazing, how can you, or what advice do you have for people who may not have that, right? And who may not be able to step into an environment that's supportive? Have you in the past created support systems around yourself for that kind of work?
Well, the work that I'm looking to work on now, I'm not the only one doing it, right? There are a lot of people right now it's part of the zeitgeist to want to move towards decolonizing the classrooms, decolonizing, just expanding the vocabulary of our world to include voices that are outside of our previously Eurocentric view, without erasing that Euro view, but just expanding the center, that it's not in the center of the world, but that it's part of a greater world. Right. And so I'm really excited that I'm not alone in that. And what I've typically done, I have been very much on my own in terms of my own work, because I haven't been surrounded within my region with a lot of people that were interested in the same work that I'm interested in. But what I have done is reach out to people from other regions, so that even though I don't have someone who lives near me, who is working directly with me, who may be interested in that same work, there are people around the country, there are people around the world who are interested in this work. So I think
How do you find them? How do you find those people?
Well, one thing is a lot of talking, right? You do a lot of letting everyone know, I'm interested in this. Like, this is something that I'm interested in. And then they hear someone else somewhere else say, oh, I'm interested in this. And they're like, oh, Rachel was interested in that. You should talk to her. And then you start to build that network just by having a really big mouth, And then, of course, you can also look up people, do Google searches and cold contact them. But I think it works better for me when there's also someone who knows that person who puts you in contact with them.
Right. So let's say that you have, you've done your Google search and you're like, okay, I found somebody who is doing the same kind of work or is even a level above me doing the work, and I'm really interested. What did you say when you reached out to that person? I mean, you don't have to say any names, but I'm just saying,
So with the people that I've reached out to so far, it's just been a matter of saying, hey, I really am excited about the work that I see you're doing. I would love to know more. I am interested in doing this type of work as well. In what ways may I support your work? And, in what ways may we exchange? So that's basically been my approach, is looking at offering myself as a support to their work, and then also looking for ways that we can exchange.
That's excellent. So in doing this work, right? So you are, and we spoke about who you are, but I want you to dig a little bit more so people really know the level of expertise that you're at. What have you done so far? Like, I know you're in theater, but what practical work have you done as well? And I'm asking this because I know, so I'm just...
Yeah. So, I mean, as a performer, I've performed, on stages, of course, quite a bit. I've done Shakespeare, I've done Athol Fugard, I've done August Wilson, I've done, a lot of different contemporary playwrights' works. And then as a director, I've directed works by Susan Laurie Parks. I've directed works by local playwrights, by other playwrights that are, contemporary playwrights that may be lesser known. I've directed works by Lee Blessings, so I've directed an array of different types of works, and I've performed an array of different types of works. I'm also currently, up until COVID happened, I was filming a series that was a dramatic series, and acting in that. in one of the lead roles in that dramatic series. I also recently directed a sitcom pilot. And, so in terms of practical work outside of the additional works that I'm developing, that's some of what I've done. I also love working with new playwrights, both as an actor and as a director. So,
why?
I love being a part of that whole collaboration where something is created for the first time, that birthing process. And I mean, yes, it's a birthing process every time that you do a production, but there's something so special about the birthing process that you get to be a part of with the original creator of the work, and there's insights that they can bring to the work that are useful to you, but also seeing them make changes because of insights that you had or insights that someone else in the room that you had, being there and seeing those sparks and facilitating those sparks is really exciting. And then also being a writer myself, I appreciate when someone supports my work. So I like to do that for others.
Awesome. So you talked about the sparks, right? So facilitating the sparks. And as somebody who, in the place that you're in, you have this voice now in this creative process. How do you facilitate those sparks where, there's now, it's going from this nascent idea to like a formed thing? What do you do?
Well, I mean, I start off by treating it the way that I would treat a script that I didn't know the playwright, where I'm reading it and analyzing it and doing that sort of script analysis that I would do with a work that I've never met the playwright. Mm-hmm. And I think, and looking at the work as if I don't know who the playwright is, so that because moving forward, it's hopefully going to be done by people who don't know them. So you want to be able to give them that perspective. So just sharing what my understanding of what they wrote is, I think can be helpful sometimes. I know that's helpful to me. If you just tell me what was your understanding of what I wrote, then I may discover that I wrote some things that meant something I didn't intend to mean, and then I may either decide I want to change that because I really want it to mean this, or I may say, that may be another meaning that I want to keep, So I think that that's helpful and useful. And I also think it's important to be really flexible, really, really flexible with it when a new work is being created. And not every artist is. So I feel really privileged to be in a position to provide that flexibility to the artists that I'm working with, and being open to whatever they've changed and how that change affects me, and also being honest about it. If they took away something that was my favorite moment in the play, I'll mention, oh man, that was my favorite moment in the play, but let's see what the new moment is.
Right.
So you can mention it, but also be really open and available to what's coming now. And that way sometimes the playwright decides to put back in the moment that was your favorite moment. And sometimes they say, no, this doesn't work for this particular play. I might use it in another play one day, So I think that's one of the things that is really important about facilitating those sparks, is that flexibility and that openness and that playfulness with the work.
Okay. So it sounds like, so I'm hearing a few things. So you've said flexibility a few times in our discussion, right? Which I am really, excited about, because I think that, as somebody who is out working with people in the public eye, helping them in theater find their voice, you're going to get all kinds of people and all kinds of personalities. And that is something I have seen with you. I have seen you. I've been excited to work with you in I don't know, I think maybe 2 projects. I don't remember. But one thing I noticed is that whatever was thrown at you, you're like, okay, which is like a theater thing. Yes, and right. Yes. Like I got, okay, this is what we got. All right. And maybe, and so there's always that openness and what feels like a generosity of spirit, which I think a lot of people are, especially when they have something that's important to them, they're afraid to be generous. They're afraid of that flexibility. Like, I don't want to give. Oh, you took away the moment, as you talked about. Well, then I'm not going to contribute anymore.
Right. Right. Which, I mean, is understandable to some extent too, though, because, you know, I think one of the most difficult things about the entertainment industry is how heavily our careers and our trajectory depends on our reputation. And how fragile those reputations are. Because someone can have a huge body of great work and they take a risk on something and it doesn't work. And if it's done publicly enough, then, oh, they fell off, they ain't good no more. I don't know, you know what I'm saying? So people will throw, and I think some of that is
say that again. For some reason, that didn't quite come through. For some reason, in the video, it didn't quite through. So you say people will take a risk, and somebody will, you know, they'll say, "Oh, that didn't work," and then all of a sudden, the video cut out. So say that again.
So sometimes, if an artist who has a great body of work, when they take a risk and they step outside of what their norm is, and if it doesn't work, people will sometimes, say, "Oh, they fell off." That's a common term, right? That people will use. "Oh, they fell off. They're not good." You know, like as if this person is no longer a great artist because they created one thing that didn't quite work. But in order to really be a great artist, you have to take those risks, you know, and you have to be open to those risks. But it's difficult to do that once you've got a reputation built, because there is a fear of something that you now have to lose. So I can understand why some actors and some writers and some, you know, just artists in general may be afraid to be flexible. And I do also believe that there are places where you shouldn't be, right? So if the work that I'm being asked to do requires me to potentially promote an idea that I am, or a belief system that I am strongly opposed to and feel is harmful to our society, then I'm not going to be flexible in that. You know, I have had that situation before where a playwright had something in their play that I just felt was absolutely harmful to our society, and I refused to move forward with that line as it was. And fortunately, after the conversation with the playwright, they did change the line, and we were able to move forward. But that was something I just couldn't be flexible on. You know, but that's the only instance where I'm not going to be flexible. If what you want to do doesn't seem to work to me, but it's not causing any harm, then hey, let's try it. Just because I don't think it's going to work doesn't mean it's not going to work. I am completely fallible and human, just like everyone else, right? Yeah. And I think that's true of all of us. And you know, I also think it's important as people that consume art and consume entertainment to be open to that reality as well. That hey, you know, just because this artist has this one thing that didn't quite work for me doesn't mean I should throw the whole artist away. Right. You know? Yeah.
So speaking of that, so with that, you know, things that work and things don't work, and it is something public, have you ever experienced a public loss? Like something, you know, didn't work well and it was public, like
I'm sure I have. I tend to put those moments in a little compartment in the back of my mind because I don't want to be paralyzed by that.
Right.
But I definitely have. There's no doubt in my mind that I have, because I can remember the feeling. So I know it happened.
How did you feel and how'd you deal with it? So that's what I'm getting from my audience. Like I know my audience has that as a fear. And so we want to know, how did you deal with it? It happened, the feeling, even if you don't want to, you don't necessarily have to tell us what it was, but there's the feeling. So then how did you deal with the feeling and then move forward? Because you're still working.
Yeah. So some of the ways that that it feels like your life is over, honestly. It feels like I'm never going to work again. This is what I have devoted my life to, and it's over. It's done. What am I going to do now? You know, it can feel that way. How I've dealt with it is, one, by being humble. You know, you have to realize like, yeah, I'm not perfect and everyone knows it now. You know, but hey, they already knew.
Right.
They already knew. I was the only one who thought I was fooling anybody.
Right.
So, you know, there's something about accepting, you know, I'm not perfect and everybody knows it now. But also, you know, taking that as I'm not perfect, and everyone knows it now. So now everyone knows I'm like them. Everyone should be able to relate to me. They might, some of them are going to hate me, some of them are going to love me, but they can relate because they are not perfect too. So we get to be not perfect together. And it took me a long time to get to that. But getting there has made life a lot more open and free for me. I've freed myself from a cage. That realization, I feel like, because instead of having this pressure of trying to maintain a certain way that people see me, I just try to do the best thing that I can do. I just try to be the best me that I can be, because you can be so concerned with appearing to be good that you're not good. Yeah. That you're actually terrible, but you look good, but you're actually terrible because you're doing so much to look good. So I've stopped worrying about looking good and just try to actually do good. And however that looks to other people, however they may judge or view me, that's not really my concern.
None of your concern. None of your concern. That's it. It speaks to a lot, at least for my audience, because there's a conversation on a regular basis about imposter syndrome. And what I believe is imposter syndrome is exactly that. It's the struggle to maintain this crazy standard, who knows where it came from, that is not authentic to you. And so you coming to the place where you're like, hey, it feels like my life is over, but feelings pass, and your career has remained past that feeling. So I'm so grateful that you shared that, because I think people need to see that it is something, and you've continued to thrive. We can't wait to see what happens for you next. So, okay, so a question is, so you talked about the work, and we talked about imposter syndrome. So what are some practices that you have that keep you grounded?
Well, one of them is actually one of the things that I teach, which is Fitzmore's voice work. So Fitzmore's voice work involves a series of efforts that some people have described as being similar to yoga in some ways, but it also taps into your autonomic system. So it goes into that, connecting to that part of your brain that goes into fight, flight, or freeze.
Wow.
And in doing that work, I find myself coming out of it more grounded, coming out of it more open, and more sensitive to the world around me, and more responsive to it. So I find that work is something that I like to do on a regular basis, just as well as for my performance, but also for my own grounding. At the same time, I am careful with it because, being more sensitive to the world isn't always
right.
Right. Mm-hmm. So there are moments when you don't want to be more sensitive to the world. And so I'm aware of that as well. And so I practice it with care and with special attention to, I guess I should explain. So the system involves what is known as destructuring, right? So it's about finding that breath that is not the thought about breath, but the breath that is that natural breath that you would have had maybe from maybe when you were born, right? And finding that breath that is not so controlled and so how I am supposed to be, but how I actually am, right? And then in the process of restructuring, you tap into the power of your transverse. That's the abdominal muscle that keeps all your guts in, supports you when you speak, supports exhalation and all of that. And so tapping into that is it taps back into a power, a structure, a connection to sending out energy, as opposed to only receiving, which sometimes in destructuring, I can feel very much like I'm receiving, but not necessarily in a position to put out the energy. So it involves both of those things, Fitzmore's voice work. So being very careful to make sure that I have restructured and I am now ready to, face what I need to face and not just be hit by what I'm facing is an important part of it as well.
That's amazing, because I think the other thing about people who are on stage and whether it's a speaking platform or a stage platform or film is, the attention that you're getting from people, if you're not ready for that energy, it's going to knock you completely off. Right.
Yeah.
And so to be able to have a somatic practice that enables us to channel that energy, and determine when and how and in what quality we receive it, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you do coaching? Do you do Fitz?
I
Is that what it
Fitzmore's voice work, yes.
Fitzmore?
So I use Fitzmore's voice work a lot in my coaching, in my acting coaching, as well as in voice coaching. So this practice is good, yes, for actors, but it's also great for speakers in general. So people that do motivational speaking or who need to give presentations or things like that. Tapping into this voice work, first of all, it helps you to find your most authentic voice. So if you have a tendency to go shrill or to lose your voice or, to try to put on a voice that isn't quite feeling authentic, then this work can be really useful for that as well. It also can help to make you just more prepared and more comfortable in front of people. So it's useful for that as well.
Okay.
And finding your purpose.
Oh, this is fantastic. How did you discover this work?
I was very fortunate that my graduate school program involved an in-depth study of Fitzmore's voice work. And then I was accepted into the Fitzmore's voice work teacher training, and I spent 2 summers there studying directly with Catherine Fitzmorris herself, who was the founder of this work, and also with several other master teachers of the work, so that I could learn about it from multiple angles and really be able to be flexible and find my own voice within the work as well.
Okay, that's fantastic. And I think that's a good thing to acknowledge, that despite the fact that you have high levels of training already, that you're willing to continue to learn and continue to develop, because the work evolves, right?
Yeah, and I think it's not only that I'm willing, but I'm excited about it. I love it, and I think that it makes me just so much stronger. I was in a play in Orlando called Bozeman and Lena.
Yeah.
Right, and that play involved me stretching myself in so many different ways. And if I had not had all of this training behind me, it would have been very difficult to do that work while still teaching in Miami. So I'm driving back and forth between Orlando and Miami.
Wow.
And playing this character who is dealing with apartheid in South Africa. So I had a dialect I had to learn on top of it. Dealing with apartheid in South Africa, dealing with an abusive husband, dealing with the loss of multiple children from miscarriages. So there's a lot that she's going through. And to have to go through that night after night and still maintain my sanity, because that's important too. Not only to be able to get into the character, but to be able to get back out of it and know that this is not my actual life. I actually have a lot of blessings that I should be grateful for, and be able to step out and be healthy mentally after playing a character who may not be. I think is really important too. And all of that training is what allowed me to be able to do it. I think without training, I may or may not have, but may have been able to play the character, but being able to play the character and still come out of it and still be me and still be healthy afterwards is also important. So
that's so key. That's so key, because how many actors have we heard have played these crazy characters, and then afterwards they're gone, in the case of a couple that are well known, or cases where, they're divorce fractures or things like that. I think people really do not understand that as an actor, you're telling the truth. Like there is something that you are tapping into within yourself that you are pulling out for public consumption. So in that, if there isn't self-care built around that, there's a lot that of debris, mental debris and emotional debris that you can be left with. So I'm really glad that you have these practices and that you're doing that. And it's something that I encourage my audience to do as well. Find a practice that helps you set up some some soul-based boundaries, right?
Right. And I think also one of the things that we forget sometimes too is that not only are you pulling out of you your real experiences, but even though everything that you're doing is pretend, to some extent, you are actually experiencing all of those things.
Right.
You know, there was a study done of how our brains respond to being told stories. And the parts of our brains that would activate if we were actually experiencing it, activate when we're being told a story, just being told a story. So having to portray a story, how much more so is my brain going through the trauma it would go through if I were actually living it?
Right.
You know, not to the same extent, maybe necessarily. You know, I'm obviously, I haven't been through the things that my characters have been through, but there is a part of me that there's a part of me that feels that experience as if it were real. And so I have to protect myself, and I have to protect my mental health through taking myself through those experiences.
Beautiful. So, okay, so we have a couple more questions for you. You have been amazing. Thank you so much for your transparency. So a couple of questions, and answer them as you feel comfortable. So in all of this, you have not mentioned one of the biggest roles you do have, and that is as a mom. So with all of these amazing things that you're doing, it could be hard to have this very public life and then balance family. What are the choices that you're making around that?
I'm not going to lie, it's not easy. There are definitely days when I feel like I am failing as a mom.
Oh, wow.
And I think every mom probably experiences that, especially moms that work, you know, and not even necessarily this type of work, but just being a mom that works. There are days when you feel like, you know, oh, I missed this thing that I wanted to be at, or, oh, I was a little short with, you know, my child in this moment when I shouldn't have been. So what I try to do is when I recognize those moments, to do what I can to make them right, to acknowledge them, first of all, because I think sometimes people can be afraid to apologize to a child. I think it's important to apologize to a child.
Right.
For one thing, it models to them that, hey, when you do something wrong, apologize, you know, that's a healthy and right thing to do. And also it lets them know that they're valued and that you care about their feelings, which I think is also an important thing for a child to know about the people that love them, and that they should expect the people that they love and that love them to care about their feelings. Beautiful. You know, that's something that should be a part of a relationship that is supposedly a loving relationship. So that's one of the things that I do. I also am fortunate that my kids have some interest in what I do sometimes, you know, so,
that's great.
You know, I like to build sets. So, you know, I also do set design some, and I build sets, and my oldest son has come with me and worked on some sets with me. My daughter is an actor, so she's been in some things that I have worked on. And then my youngest son, he just loves being in the rehearsal space. So I'm really curious how that's going to translate for him, because he will sit in a rehearsal space for an entire rehearsal, you know, and he's not involved in the show in any way, but he just loves to sit in the rehearsal space while it's happening. So I'm curious what that's going to translate into. He's still young, so we'll see. Yeah. I don't push them to be involved in any of these things. I just always offer the opportunity and support them in what it is that they choose to do.
That's fantastic. And you know, admitting to them if you feel mistakes are made is an amazing model. So, you know, I think it's great that the same authenticity that you're carrying through your practices and everything is the same that you demonstrate to them. So I'm sure they're absolutely fine. So
yeah, I feel grateful that they seem to be all right. You know,
yeah.
I haven't broken anybody.
Oh, so please. Oh my gosh, they're fine. And I'm sure part of it is like, our mom is so cool. She knows all these people, and she gets to play different things, and she builds entire worlds. So like, I mean, I think that's the other thing as well. For women who have a concern about the balance of family, thinking of what you model to your children, that you create worlds, right, from an idea, and you're putting that and you're practicing that on a regular basis. So they get to see all of it. I mean, and that's something that, as you said in the very beginning, when you're talking about curriculum, preparing them for the world that is to come, that they're going to create,
Yeah.
So I think that's beautiful. So my favorite interviewer, James Lipton. We're going to do a couple nods to him, and then we're going to close this out here. So what's your favorite quote?
Oh, my favorite quote.
Mm-hmm.
That's hard because there's so many quotes that I think at this particular moment, my favorite quote, which I don't even know that I can phrase it precisely correctly, and I don't know who originally said it, because it's been attributed to several different people. So I'm not going to attribute it to anyone because I don't want to attribute it to the wrong person. But it's someone other than me who said this, which is that the difference between an artist and a politician is that a politician will use the truth to tell you a lie, and an artist uses lies to show you the truth. So that's one of my favorite.
Ooh, love that. Love that. What's your favorite curse word?
I don't like curse words.
Okay, so that's an answer. That's the truth.
I don't like curse words. It's so funny. My son sent me a meme the other day of this little kid saying, guys, stop cursing. It's so inappropriate. He's like, Mom, this is you. So, yeah. But I mean, I've played a lot of characters that curse, but I personally don't enjoy curse words.
Awesome. So if heaven could be created on earth, what would it involve for you?
Oh, what would it involve for me if heaven could be created on earth?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, freedom of self-expression. There would be theater everywhere, every day. There would be spoken word everywhere, every day. That's another thing that I guess I didn't mention, that I do spoken word as well. And I'm a member of Chaos Theory, a performance poetry collective, as well, along with Maury Tai and Regan Riggs Mendoza. So that would be happening all the time. Poetry, art everywhere, and really good food, because who doesn't love really good food? Yeah.
Awesome. So any parting words for us?
Parting words.
Mm-hmm.
I think, well, for one thing, I'm really grateful that you wanted to speak with me. I'm honored to be one of the 10,000 women that whose voices you are amplifying. I think authenticity is for me crucial and key to living a life that you want, instead of a life that people have told you you're supposed to. Just be true to who you are.
Those are perfect words to end with. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Rachel Finley. This has been 10,000 Women, 10,000 Stages. So we're an online platform for women and those who love women, who have decided that it's time for them to step into an amplified place, whether it's for their message, for their movement, but for some way to impact and change the world positively. So I'm here for it. I've done it for a while, and I think it's time that other women do it too. So I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for tuning in to 10,000 Women, 10,000 Stages. Share this episode with someone who needs it. Find us at 10,000women10,000stages.com.